All right. Well, good morning, everyone. The guys on our team are kind of in a discretionary week, kind of lifting on their own as we get into finals, dead week in finals. So we're cleaning some things up, just having some meetings with some guys before they depart for a short period of time because we start and come back. I think Memorial Day is when we come back because of our early start to summer. So things are winding down here. With our guys and get away for a little bit. Coaches are on the road recruiting. I was at AFCA Board of Trustees the last few days in Arizona. Still waiting on a lot of things to do there based on house settlement, which we really don't have much to talk about there until that's done. We're finishing up recruiting. We're getting prepared for 2026 official visits, and it's May's become a really busy month, and I think as we try to redo the calendar, it's going to be even busier.
What did you learn about your team this spring?
The maturity of Avery and the growth of Avery, you could tell there's so much more of a comfort level. And last year at this time, he had played one game, and we were trying to keep progressing him. Now you can tell he's got another 12, 13 games under his belt, and the confidence he has, the leadership that he has, and it's just made our whole offense, I think, a lot more confident, a lot more efficient. And so even though we didn't have a full complement of spring practices, I felt really good on that side of the ball because of the growth of Avery. And then as we continue to try to find out who that backup quarterback is, that's going to be kind of ongoing battle. But those guys got a decent amount of reps. And then on defense, was hard because of all the guys out with injuries. We tinkered with some things because we were down so many players at different spots. So that will kind of be a continuum once we get into the summer. But we also know a lot of those guys that were out. You guys would know the same names. They didn't practice this spring, but they've played a lot of football for us.
How much does that bolstering that receiver spot helped your offensive efficiency?
I think it did. In fact, I know it did help getting Tibbs, getting JB in here, getting Medford in here. Those guys are really efficient wide receivers that have had a lot of playing time other places that didn't take long to understand a system, sometimes like a young player does. These guys are older guys that have played a lot of football. So, you could tell them something once and talk about a concept, just different terminology, and it clicked a lot faster for those guys. And then you throw Jace into that mix. I just think it really helped us there, finding some more people outside. We were down some running backs in spring, so we worked a lot more on the passing game. We love our tight ends. They're really good players, and so I think it will make us more more dynamic and more versatile.
Was it an advantage having late spring and then kind of transitioning right into portal needs, and you got 3 commitments this week?
It probably ended up that way, but wasn't the intent of it. When we kind of put this calendar together, Coach True and I, it had nothing to do with how or when the portal was going to open or close. It was more what we thought we needed as a football team, which was strength, muscle mass, weight, speed, all the things that we spent a good 9 weeks on. And in the past, we'd spent 6 weeks on it. And then we'd gotten into spring ball and really stretched out the spring. Well, when you do that, you kind of hurt the development. And our science has been pretty accurate of once you get out of the true winter conditioning and go to spring, you just lose a little bit. That's just the natural because you're not lifting as much. You're not doing those things as much. That adding those 3 weeks was maybe the best thing we have done here in a long time. And you'd ask the older kids as well that maybe have already had their bodies pretty much mature. Having Taylor Portier tell us how great it was to have 9 weeks, not 6 weeks, to get his body ready and right for the season. And I think those are some of the things that people are going to see as the calendars begin to change once this house settlement gets done.
Chris, can you walk us through your strategy on retaining players? It seemed like you did a pretty good job of that this spring, but what is just your philosophy this time of year to keep as many guys in-house that you want?
Well, it's relationships, it's development, it's growth, it's There's opportunities for everybody to go and do something else. That's not going to change. I don't think that's going to change with the new rules and stuff. Guys are going to have that opportunity. I believe that the relationships and the development and what we're doing downstairs on first floor with nutrition, with strength, with athletic training, with recovery, I think it's as good as there is in college football, and I think our guys know that and believe that, especially when you have kids that do come into our program from other schools to say, wow, you guys are doing a phenomenal job down on this first floor of developing and continuing to enhance the player's experience. And then being truthful, being honest with them probably upstairs on fourth floor. And, K-State's unique. It's special. It's got great people here. It's got great tradition here. And we still are probably understaffed, but I think that helps us in the fact of you're building more relationships with fewer people if you're a player than having 10 analysts on each side of the ball, which a lot of schools do. We don't. Having fewer and fewer people that they're interacting with because they're building those relationships.
How much different have you seen the offense look with Matt running the show?
Probably, once again, in a very small sample size of practices, not a bunch. I think that just comes from the development and growth of Avery as he continues to improve. The fact that we're bringing in some wideouts that have played an awful lot, and it probably looked more efficient, in my opinion. Granted, there were some mistakes. There were some things we've got to clean up that were by no means where we want to be, but I just think it looked more efficient and it looked a little bit crisper.
Did you end up at 10 practices? Was that the number?
Yeah, but two of those were strictly walk-through practices, and I think we ended up having 6 padded practices, 8 padded practices, and 4 walkthroughs.
Is there any downside to leaving practices on the table?
100%. There is downside, but the calendar is only so long and so deep that the development of a handful of guys would have been better to have 5 more practices. On the flip side, we did not do double reps. As you know, that's a staple of our program. We did not do double reps this spring, and that was the one thing that we feared was we're going to lose all these reps. Well, we finished spring ball with 2 running backs practicing and 4 tight ends practicing and maybe 6 linebackers. We didn't have the bodies to do double reps, and so we were piecing the practice together and giving the running backs breaks and just stopping practice and doing special teams and giving those guys a blow because we were down because of some soft tissue injuries.
Coming out of spring, was there a couple areas where you felt like, gosh, we're a lot better here now than maybe we were a couple months ago?
I think that the proof will be in the fall, but I feel really good about the receivers. And the fact that we've got some experienced guys in there. But no, I think we'll find out more in the fall. That's hard to really say based on the few practices we had.
And then kind of still adding pieces to the offensive line here late. What have you kind of seen from that group or didn't see that maybe you felt like you needed something?
You're always trying to improve your team. And I thought with the offensive staff that if we could add some veteran guys to the offensive line, you lose veteran guys, and you want to replace them with the young guys that are up and coming. And those guys are really good football players, but they don't have that game experience. And so we had the opportunity to land a couple of guys, and I thought it was important. And it's not anything of what those young guys are doing. We just wanted to maybe provide some insurance and allow those guys to continue to grow. And we're still hopeful that John Pastore will come back. He had an injury that didn't allow him to finish the season and didn't allow him to finish spring or to participate in spring at all. And if we had a healthy John, that we knew we had a healthy John, maybe we didn't need to, but we're praying that he is, because I think he's a really good football player. But it maybe doesn't have John have to be back immediately. We can kind of take his progress a little bit slower. And then, and this is not anything, we're going to play more offensive linemen, and we've talked about that in the past. But that was one of the things I talked to Brian about when I elevated Brian was I saw the last couple of years what it did to the guys playing 5 guys that many snaps, and we feel like we have the ability to play 8 and 9 guys now. Will we get all those guys in every game? I don't know, but I know early on in the season that's one of the things that Brian and Drew want to focus on is to play 8 or 9 guys so that we can keep those guys, keep a TP as fresh as long as we can, as he's got a lot of tread on those tires, and not have to play him 75 plays a game for 13 games.
It seems like in the spring portal window, things just sort of move a little bit quicker. When guys enter in the spring, what are some of the things that you're looking for to evaluate them, I guess, as quickly as possible?
Yeah, it moves the same as it does in December. There's no difference in the fact of you have to vet, evaluate, talk to, figure out where they fit in your roster, figure out where they fit in the rev share contract area within about 2 hours. And then you have another 2 hours to try to get a hold of them, along with 800 other schools trying to get a hold of them. It's probably too much, probably 40 schools getting a hold of them. And then you're just battling to see, do you have a chance at that kid? That's not changed whether it was December, whether it was January, or in April. And so maybe there's a guy that you really want, but it just doesn't fit your cap. And maybe there's a guy that you think will be a guy that can help you and he fits your cap. You got to take a chance on the guy. You don't have any time. You're not going out and visiting these kids. You're bringing them in for 24 hours because they got 5 other places they're seeing. That's just the way it is. And we'd like to get some of that adjusted and changed. I don't know when or how we're going to do it, but it's putting a lot of pressure on the schools, and it's putting a lot of pressure on those players because the longer you're in the portal, the more your phone's ringing and the more you're just not getting a chance to even take a breath. And, the couple kids that we did add were really older in their career and graduated. And that's the thing that, nobody talks about, but the academic side of this thing needs to start getting talked about a heck of a lot more because we were going to bring in another kid, but he had classes all week. And I was gone this weekend, and I wanted to be here, but you can't bring them all in because they got classes. And even if they're only online classes, there's still assignments and work they got to do, and they got to make sure that they fit academically to your school. I mean, those are the things that we've got to get squared away. I don't know when, but to answer your question, it's at the speed of light, whether it's in December, January, or April.
I know you've mentioned this before, but to have a GM now who can sort of help vet some of those guys.
He's just doing it.
How important has that been to sort of have a guy who you trust that can sort of
I think
do
that's
some
the key is the trust and relationship that Clint and I have had for a long time, and that he wanted to get into this role. So the guys have got to trust him, and that's the thing that's probably the biggest challenge. It's coaches like myself that have been in this profession for a long time. Well, let me slow down on this and let me see if this is really the guy we want. And I'm trying to get a hold of his coach back at this place. Haven't gotten a hold of him. We don't have time. We've got to act now. Nate Katzer's really helped Clint. Nate obviously is our special teams coordinator, but has been through this world because he's in the NFL, and that it's free agency, and so he's really been a great sounding board for Clint between the two of those guys. And I've kind of elevated Nate and have kind of leaned on him a lot. Those two guys are doing all the work, and then they're using me as a sounding board, or maybe getting final approval on stuff. And the assistants are, hey man, tell me the guys you like. There's 20 kids here. And if you like these 3 and we can't get them, then we got to go to these 3. I mean, that's the thing that it's harder for an assistant. Like, well, I like this guy, but well, we can't afford him. We got to go to the next guy. And Clint is one thing I love about Brownie. He's going to call it like he sees it. And he will have no problem saying, "Sorry guys, I'm gonna Coach and I are making this decision. Go back in your office. Go do your stuff. We got this."
Secondary. How have you guys gone about replacing a couple of NFL level players, obviously, in Parrish and Siegel?
awesome that we are able to use development there. Zayshawn Rich, Donovan McIntosh are guys that have been in the program a short period of time, that trusted the process, trusted with what we were talking about, with what Coach Malone's teaching, with what Coach Klieman's teaching, and the growth that they've had, putting on really good weight, really good strength, really good speed, that those are young players that have ascended to essentially towards the top of the depth chart, that are ready to go and play now. And I think we all saw that in the Rate Bowl, that those two kids really have talent. Then you throw in a kid like Justice James, that's been in the program for a long time, that is still going to be a valuable piece for us back there. And then we did add Jaden Rowe and Amarian Fortenberry to provide not necessarily depth, but provide experience as well as competition, because we know we're going to need 5 and 6 guys back there. But happy with Donnie Mack and Zayshawn, because they really have taken another step.
Coach, I was wondering if you could dive a little deeper on like J.B. Nelson and how that came about and what he brings to the table.
He's played a lot of football at Penn State. He's battled through some injuries, but played a lot of ball there, and it came up pretty quickly. And watched film, liked it, got a chance to bring him on campus, get a chance to get around him some. And there was a lot of people after he and Terrence. I mean, there's just a lot of schools that are trying to get these guys to trip and visit, and we were fortunate. And that's the thing we were trying to do, is just get them on campus, give us a better opportunity to get around those guys, give them a better opportunity to get around us, to see if it fits, to get around Coach True, to get around Scott Troush and Mindy in a short period of time. But the experience level there, I thought, was something that was really unique. And we have a couple of – he could be multiple spots, but we have guys like Andrew, the line gang, that could play multiple spots. So I just thought a guy with that kind of experience, it was going to be something that if we had a chance to get him, we would.
Same thing with Terrence.
Yeah, really, same thing. And we project him to be a tackle. He could move inside, but we want to keep him at tackle. I think he'd like to stay at tackle. It's another piece that guys played a lot of football, and noticed that sometimes you have to take that chance on 1-year guys. You'd like to get guys for 2 and 3 years. Like we've got Fitz for 2 years. That really helps us, not you. We've had you for a long time. We'd like, but you'd like to get guys. Amos we have for, I think, 2 or 3 years, but it doesn't always work that way. And so I think it maybe bridges the gap with some of these younger guys that you're thinking about, that we maybe don't have to, they're going to play, but we don't have to count on them for 70, 80 snaps. Now, they may win the jobs, these young guys. Well, that's a great thing is we have some really good competition.
NFL question. Most draft picks in the 3-year window in the last 20 years at Kansas State. And that's something to be really proud of. What do you attribute to that? What's it say about Kansas State?
Football's football. I've said it for 7 years here, that if you're good enough, they're going to find you. And the opportunity for those guys that were here, whether it was DJ and Jacob that had been here their whole time, or Keese to come into a situation, buy in, be in with both feet in all levels of it, not just what you do on the field, but what you do off the field through strength, nutrition, recovery, all those things. Really proud of the fact that we had another 3 guys drafted, and then you throw Will in there, having another guy really drafted, it's helping us in recruiting for sure.
You mentioned that special teams ended up getting more reps throughout the spring just because of injuries. What was kind of learned through that, and what were some things that kind of popped out?
It was almost all drill work, because we just didn't have the numbers to do full team stuff. So Cats did a great job of implementing all 4 teams drills that we need to keep working on. They have some captains practices in the summer that the older guys will help run through those drills again. We tweaked a couple of things in some coverage, a technique that Nate's been researching, and so it was more the drill work. But that's what allowed us to do that. We could have been doing a team setting over here, because we only had X amount of guys, but on this field, then you're with Nate, and we were working on a lot of different drill work, and that skill set is going to be more and more important as the roster is going to shrink. We just don't know where that's going to be, that you're going to have a lot of younger guys that are going to contribute on the field on special teams. And so giving that extra time in the spring is going to help those guys come fall camp.
And then kind of a logistics question. With the incoming guys this spring, did whether or not they had a passport, did that factor in at all with bringing them in, or is there still plenty of time for
No,
them
I
to
think
get?
there's still time. Yeah, you got to expedite it, but I think there is still time. And I don't know, these kids have way different spring breaks than when I was a kid. And so they have the ability to go wherever they want to. I didn't have that ability, so I'd be amazed how many kids have these passports.
Farthest you went on spring break?
I got to Florida one time only because I begged my grandma to help me pay for it, and I did some extra yard work for her, but she paid for my spring break to Florida.
Also wanted to ask, can you evaluate the quarterback play other than Avery? How are the other guys looking?
That was probably the biggest thing that I knew we would not probably get done was naming the number 2 because we weren't double reps. So you can't, I mean, I think Sean or Wellesley gave me this where last year in the spring double reps, I don't know, Knuth got 400 reps or 300 reps, and this year it was maybe 150 or 120 reps. I mean, Avery had like 600 down to 250. I mean, those numbers were triple or at least double the previous spring. Remember, Blake didn't participate the previous spring because of an injury. So we had 5 guys, and Avery took a lot of the reps because we wanted that chemistry with the wide receivers that just came aboard, and then they probably split between Blake, Dylan, and Jacob, and then Hud probably got the fewest amount of reps. So when we met with those guys, and I know when Wellesley met with those guys, this is going to continue to be ongoing as we find out who that number 2 is. I was really pleased with all of them. I thought I really loved the growth of Jacob Knuth. I thought he had his best spring he's had, having a fall in the spring. Blake finally getting and being healthy showed great improvement. And, I really like about Dylan Duff is nothing's too big for him. And, won a state basketball champion, won a state football championship, but he came in and was drinking through a fire hose trying to learn our offense and maybe would screw something up with a cadence or a motion or shift, and it never really overwhelmed him. He would just go and execute a play, and he had that moxie of just making plays in the few snaps that he had. Not a lot of them had a lot of snaps, but all 3 of those guys, I think, have a chance to be really, really good. And I don't know how it'll shake out, but it'll be fun to have an entire fall camp where we can do some double reps and get, a couple guys on each field and try to get some of those rep counts up because the experience factor in getting under center and taking those plays is what's going to help them.
Also wanted to ask, what is your roster size right now?
I think Clint told me we're maybe 107, somewhere in there. And guys, I don't know what's going to happen. One of the things we talked about at the AFCA Board of Trustees is nothing is going to take place until this house settlement's done for anything, not just for football, but for all sports. Nothing is going to move forward in any way until this house settlement is signed.
Speaking of roster size, are you basically proceeding as if it's going to be 105, or do you have some
Arnie, I'm not
contingencies?
proceeding at all right now. We're frozen right now, honestly, because we just don't know how that's going to look, and we don't know how each conference, each institution, or how this house settlement will play out as far as bringing more guys back or bringing more guys in. I just don't know.
Is that something you'd be prepared to do if you
Well,
get the
we would
chance?
be prepared. No, we wouldn't be prepared. I really that's the thing that is and you guys know this is frustrating is we're in May and nobody knows what their roster is going to be for the season. Nobody knows how many. Nobody knows if you're going to allow kids. And nobody knows anything. And it's awful for the players. It's awful for the coaches that we don't have an answer. And nothing we can do other than just wait. And then when it gets thrown at us, then we'll figure it out. But that's kind of how college athletics is working right now. Nobody knows anything until you know something, then you better figure it out fast.
Also with special teams, you talked about drills. Do you feel like you're closer to determining who's going to be handling which jobs yet?
No. Because I appreciate the question, Arnie. It's because it was all drills and we weren't under fire kicking the ball against live rush and some of those things. So that'll be ongoing through fall camp. And I knew that was going to be the case whether we had a whole complement or not. We were going to probably, the kickers are, Leighton's been around a little while, Cubs brand new. We got to go into the fall with that.
What are you hearing? I mean, we heard the 7th and the 21st.
And we've asked the same questions, Wyatt, and then we heard they had a week or 2 weeks, and now that's passed, and so I don't know. I wish all of us wish we knew and we could move forward, and I think I have a feeling it's going to be longer than shorter. And even if they come out with something, then they have to decide, okay, what are the ramifications for that? So I would have no guess. I don't think Gene Taylor would have a guess at it right now. They would just hope it's sooner rather than later.
Is there any feel at all about
You don't even know exactly. You don't have the question, and I don't have the answer.
well, I guess I'm struggling to ask, is there a feel with the coaches that they're going to grandfather some of this in or no?
Depends on who you ask. Depends on who you ask. If you ask the guys that just did what I had to do a week ago, we hope we grandfather them. You ask the guys that had to do that in December and January, you hope they don't, because I let all those guys go. I know a couple really good friends in this business that did it in December and said, I feel bad for you guys in April. And if we're allowed to get some of those guys back and they're not, how equitable is that? So that's why they're having such problems, I think, on this.
Yeah, you got one quick one here?
Coach, throughout this offseason, I'm sure the guys have done a tremendous job of improving their game. Are there a few players that you can highlight and kind of give credit to, show how much they've really improved throughout the offseason? Or
Yeah, probably not. I mean, that let's get to the fall. With the limited practices we had, we talked about where we felt like the growth was on offense, and I think the health of the defense is paramount. Now, all those guys will be cleared sometime in June from their surgeries they had after the Rate Bowl. I'm excited about what we have coming back, but we've got to practice a little bit with everybody.